Good evening, everybody. How are you? This is Enrique Sanchez of Spanish United. Today we have a very special guest. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Hello?
Yeah. Did you
Oh,
hear what I said? I said, can you introduce yourself
uh,
to the audience, please?
okay, no, you broke up. So sorry. Hi, yes, my name is Joanna Daniels, and I live in Tennessee, and I'm actually in holistic health, um, but kind of got thrown into the political arena. So that's me.
Excellent. Welcome. Thank you for being on the show, Joanna.
Thank you for having me.
Likewise, it's really amazing how people, get connected. I wasn't expecting to meet someone who's affiliated with my, favorite band, and it's just something that God, a point. So I just wanted to get that out real quickly. So I want to say, thank you, POD, for a lot of good things that you guys have done for everyone in the community around the world. Positive vibes.
Mm,
All right, then.
thank you.
Likewise. All right. So today's topic is a very controversial one right now that's happening in the United States, and it has to do with critical race theory, or CTR. And a lot of listeners in my community, Spanish United, have heard the phrase, but a lot of them don't know what it is. And you probably know more about that than I do. So we'll start up with the first question. What is critical race theory, or CTR? What is it, so that way people could be better acquainted of the term?
So, you know, so critical race theory or CRT, you know, in in the simplest form begins with the assumption that racism occurs in all interactions. That's basically, if you want to get down to it, that racism is prevalent, that it is always happening, and that nothing can happen without some form of racism.
Hmm. And where do you think CTR came from? Like, who was the one that coined up the term, and where did it come from? It's like this is like something new that most people are not aware of. So, like, do you have an idea where it came from?
CRT is not new. CRT has been around for a very long time, and it is something um, that was started a long time ago, and it actually is something that CRT takes on a lot of different names: social emotional learning. A lot of people have even tied it to Common Core. CRT has been tied to communism. So critical race theory is not new, and has been around for a very long time.
Okay. And why is it that it is so? Then comes to the second question: why is critical race theory, in your opinion, controversial in the school? Like, why is it that a lot of people see it as such a controversial issue?
Well, what one of the things that that I'm doing here in Tennessee and have been really fighting back about is that, one, critical race theory should not be brought into school. I mean, it's something that is taught at a collegiate level. It's something that's been discussed. It's something that adults talk about, um, and can debate, and because they have critical thinking. And but it should not be something that is taught in school, but in any sense of the theory, which, by the way, it's a theory, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
um, because, one, our schools are for arithmetic, for literature, for social studies, and critical race, and I emphasize theory, has no true base. And it's not something that should be taught, especially to children that cannot have critical thinking and have not developed critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So, and, in my opinion, some 20-year-olds haven't developed critical thinking yet. So,
It is true.
so I think that it's something that in my opinion should not be, it shouldn't even, in my opinion, it shouldn't even be a subject to be taught. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that I never understood. Like, I understand that there are certain topics, like for example, that are appropriate for a college setting, which is not appropriate for a school setting. Doesn't necessarily have to be controversial. But let's say, for example, physics is not something that should be taught in a first grade level, not because it's controversial and it's inappropriate, but it's not for a mind that, like you said, that has not advanced. So there's certain things that I believe that should be let out of the schoolroom, and
mhm,
especially that the schools should not be for indoctrination. And I'm not talking from political or anything, but it should be just for learning. It's like what the children learn at home, that's the parents' business. But when the children are in school, the school's job and the teacher's job is to make sure that they learn. And I've said this many times before, that one of the reasons why a lot of children are failing is because the schools don't work together with the parents. Like, it is not the parents' job to educate their children when they're at school, and it's not the school's job to make sure that the parents, that the children do their homework. So they have to work together, and everyone has an assigned role. Like, the teacher's job is like when the students in school, you have to teach them whatever topics that has to do with general learning. And then when they go to school, when they go home to do their homework, it's not the teacher's job to be there supervising, but the parent has to be the one that has to make sure and supervise that the children do their homework. So I think that is something that is essential, because I feel that when people start throwing mud at each other and putting the blame on each other, I just feel that you know the ones that really get affected are the children. And when it comes to critical race theory, and I'm someone that's Christian, but I keep my beliefs and personal things out, that there's a time and place for everything. And what I feel of critical race theory is that it should be left at a setting that's more advanced, not for children that are not even aware of race, or not necessarily race, but aware of things that are of the world. So that's something that I do agree with you, that
mhm,
there are certain things that should be left specifically for the schools, for the curriculum, and then the children, whatever they learn at home is what they learn at home.
mhm, mhm.
And yeah, go ahead. You were going to say something.
No, well, yes, I was just going to say that, I do believe that it takes, parent and teacher cooperation. And it does take a parent, though, being involved and watching what is being taught to their children and being involved in
Mm,
that. And, how critical race theory got into the schools is because parents stopped paying attention.
mhm,
And in the in you know in my mom was a single parent of four,
mm,
and so it was really hard for her to pay attention because she was trying to provide for four children.
mhm,
Luckily, I grew up in an era where it was before the No Child Left Behind stuff. So before all that started, so and that's when teachers did not teach from a curriculum. They had textbooks and created um, their own lesson plans.
Right.
And it was a way different time.
Hmm.
And I think that parents just got complacent, and we all get complacent at times, and just kind of just thought, oh, there's nothing, they're not going to teach my children anything I wouldn't approve of. Well, when parents turn away and people stop watching, well, that's when little demons come in and start, messing
Hmm.
up with things. So,
So I wanted to ask, I was going to ask, what do you think is the motive or the purpose of critical race theory? Do you think it's a form of white guilt? Is it a form of the United States having a colonizer mentality and they have to like make reparations? Like what is the motive, or what do you think is the agenda of pushing critical race theories? Like what is the ultimate goal?
well, the ultimate goal is spiritual warfare. I mean, I'm just going to be blunt with you, is that this is all and this is where I always tell people that we need to pray, because this is spiritual warfare. And it's about division. It's about not loving thy neighbor. It's about coveting what thy neighbor has. It's about, if you just go through it all, you look at the 10 Commandments and it says thou shalt not murder.
Right.
Well, people think, well, that just means killing someone.
Right.
No, that's not what that means. You can murder someone's reputation. You can
Hmm.
murder someone's you place in society, so there's a lot of things in there. And so above all, it's spiritual warfare.
Hmm.
Secondly, in my opinion, is that a house divided is a house that will fall and can easily be controlled by government.
Hmm.
And because if you get everybody fighting with each other and everybody is afraid to speak up, then no one's going to resist.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, but above all, it's spiritual warfare, and then um, it's
Yes,
always
correct.
about division.
Yes, correct, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's how empires have fallen, like the Roman Empire. Like the Roman Empire, they collapsed because they became enemies within themselves, and it just corroded from within. So I kind of see a similar pattern with the United States. It's like in the last couple of years, it's like I've seen a lot more things now than I did in my lifetime. Like, I'm pretty close to your age, but not up there, but I'm almost there. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember a lot of things in the 90s that for example, there was more tolerance, in my opinion. It didn't matter, who was in government, whatever, but it was like there was more tolerance. And I feel that today there is more intolerance, there's more xenophobia, there's more hatred, and I think a lot of it has to do because of Critical race theory, I believe, is something that they're trying to introduce into the people, but also a lot of it has to do with, economics. I was actually reading a book that I picked up the other day of Ronald Reagan. I don't have it on me, but it had to do with the first 100 days of office. And I remember, like
I'm
in
sorry.
the synopsis, the economist was saying that when you have a bad economy, everything falls down. When you have a good economy, everything will become stabilized. So I feel that when you don't have a good economy, everything crumbles. So I feel that, and again, this is just my personal observation, that
Mhm.
critical race theory is trying to also emphasize on class struggle, which is something that is typical of Marxism. And again, I'm not, you know, for or against it, but this is something that I've observed, that in many countries, like in Latin America, for example, where the ones that hold all the wealth historically have been descendants of Spaniards, and that's the way that it's been. So that's one of the
Mhm.
reasons why when you see revolutions and instabilities happening in Latin America, primarily it has to do because of class struggle. I feel that in America's case, I wouldn't say 100% economical, but I would say it's kind of like in between, because you have people that kind of feel resentful that the wealth has not gotten there equally. And then, like you said, when people have resentments or another group of people are more successful, that makes people angry. Like one of the things that I'm doing with my organization, Spanish United, is that we're not political. We don't emphasize on race or color, anything like that. The only thing that we emphasize is that we are all Hispanic people, and that we're working for the greater good, that the Hispanic people can move forward and be successful. Because I feel that there are many Hispanic groups that they kind of like take sides, or they start out okay and then they get taken over by another group of people that don't have their best interests, and they kind of like crumble. So one of the things that I'm doing is that I'm trying to educate Hispanics that not to have the victim mentality, but try to get an education. That's something that is very essential for any group of people, is to get an education. It's like one thing that Hispanic people struggle with is that education is not important to them, either culturally or any way. But it's like that's the cycle of poverty that continues. And I always tell my listeners, I tell people when I have my workshops, is that education is the passport to the future. If you're not able to like put up a business, like a lot of people do, that they have money to put up a business, education or learning a skill is important, because that's the only way you're going to move forward. It's like people have this notion in the Hispanic community that once I'm here, I'm going to get rich. It's not the case. There's a lot of
Mhm.
Hispanics that are struggling here that are even worse off here than they were when they left the home country. So I always tell them, if you want to have a better life, get an education, because that's how Asians are doing it, Jews are doing it, other groups that are doing it, and they are successful. So, I don't mix, politics and race in my organization. I always try to encourage the people within the Hispanic community to better themselves through education, also investing in themselves. So I think that's something that's very, very, very important. And another thing I was going to ask,
Mhm.
the pros and cons, because a lot of people are saying that critical race theory is a good thing, meaning the pros, critical race theory is a bad thing. So let's talk about the pros and the cons for the sake of argument. So how would you argue, for example, the cons, and then we'll start with the pros from your standpoint.
Uh, I'm sorry, you broke up. Are we starting with the pros first or the cons first?
Let's start with the cons first, and then we'll start with the pros. So give me like an oversight.
Uh, well, I think I said a lot of it is that, well, it's the cons to critical race theory. If you want to, we can handle them both. There is no pros. That's the con.
Okay.
So, but the cons is that it's divisive. It focuses on a color of the person or their, ethnicity instead of the person themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It is, extremely un-American in that it is, we worked so hard as a society to come together, and we were, as you said, there was more tolerance, and now it's like undoing it all. It focuses and basically says that everyone is racist. Well, at least every white person is racist.
Right.
And and it causes, it tries to cause guilt. It tries to cause fear, of both which are not of God.
Mm-hmm.
And but the biggest thing of all is it's divisive, and it doesn't allow for someone to see someone for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's, it's all just color of your skin, and we fought that in the civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
At least I thought that's what we did. We in the civil rights, we said, hey, we shouldn't be judged by the color of our skin. And now in 20, in the 2000s, now you have to be judged by the color of your skin. Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and unfortunately, that extends also to Hispanics, because Hispanics, as you know, we're not a race, we're an ethnicity, so we could be of any race. So
mhm,
it's like Hispanics
mhm,
in the 21st century, from what I've seen, they're kind of left out when it comes to civil rights. And it's like, sometimes it's kind of hard to document Hispanophobia or hate crimes against Hispanic people, because, since we're not officially considered a race, it's like, people don't know who's Hispanic. It's like most people think Hispanic is, dark and brown and short.
mhm,
Hispanic could be of any race.
mhm. Yeah.
And let's see what else I was gonna say. So, like, as a as a collective, how do you feel that we can go about in to educate the people on what it is, and then, for people to coming up with their own conclusions of, if they think it's fact or if it's, not fact. So it's like, what are like any ideas or solutions that you would suggest to people that want to look into critical race theory, but, they don't know too much about it? So, like, what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, I can message you some, some great resources, but racism is never going to go away,
Mm-hmm.
ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you know this, and maybe you agree or don't or disagree, I'm not sure, but racism is a problem of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And when, you can't cure a problem with a heart by by adding another problem of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, like putting out a fire with fire. That's not gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, critical race theory, because it was dreamed up at Harvard Law School, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all kinds of great things comes out of Harvard and Yale.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's something that I think you were just saying earlier, no, I was listening to something earlier, but academias, they need to stop trying to be the moral hierarchy and create morals in our society. And that's where they need to stop that, because it's not their right or their job to do that, you
Mhm.
know. And critical race theory, in my opinion, okay, and some people have spoken about this, is it was a it was a reaction to the civil rights movement.
Okay.
And because people, academia, didn't want unity in America.
Mhm.
Because when there's unity, then there is peace. And you and I both know that there is one major force in the world that does not want peace.
Mhm.
And so when there is any inkling of peace, then of course there is going to be something to counteract that. So you think about this, this was created in the 70s for the most part, you know, put down on paper and, you know, and all that stuff. And we're now 50 years later, and it is now permeating everything. So,
Yeah, you
you
would.
know,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, so the thing is that how can we stop this? Um, how can we, you know, turn from this? Just think about critical race theory. Just the name of it should really bring a shudder to your body and go, what is critical about race? We're
The
supposed
first,
to not
the
pay attention to
first,
that.
the first time I heard that word, the first thing came to my mind, okay, maybe it's something scientific. You know, that's something that I learned in the university. Not the word critical race theory, but anything has to do like with critical whatever. It's like a scientific thing. So that's the thing that first came to my mind. Maybe it was scientific racism
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, when I first heard it, critical race, I was like, you know, my first thing was like, what's critical about race? Like, please tell me, because, you know, that we shouldn't be paying attention to anyways. So what's critical about it? You know, so anyway, so, you know, it's something, once again, and here's the thing is, you know, my daughter-in-law, she's from China,
Mhm.
and grew up in communist China, and she now lives with me, and I've she's been helping me on some projects, and so she's now become familiar with critical race theory. And she's like, she goes, wow, it's like the CCP.
Mhm.
And
The
I go,
Chinese
what do you mean?
Communist Party.
Uh-huh. She's like, it's so divisive. And I was like, yep. And it really, it does have roots in communism. But you know, it and what you said earlier just, you know, a little bit ago, was that, you know, this is how Rome fell,
Mhm.
and it's also how Israel fell. It's
Mhm.
also how you know, probably 10 years ago, I was having a conversation. The only way that America's going to fall is it's going to implode.
Right. It's similar. I kind of see what's happening in America, similar to what happened with the Soviet Union. Like the Soviet Union collapsed and it imploded 30 years ago. And prior to that, the Soviet Union lasted for 70 years. And it was a powerful country. You know, it's like the whole world was scared of the Soviet Union. And then in one day, I was 7 years old when the Soviet Union collapsed. And I remember when it collapsed, it was like, oh wow. So it's like that country that everyone feared, it's like they faded out of existence, you know. So I kind of feel it's kind of the same way with America because of things that have happened socially, politically, economically, that could happen. But I feel that when they put an emphasis on a certain thing that doesn't bring unity, it's just going to be a recipe for disaster.
Mhm. It
Yeah.
is. It absolutely is. And, we have taken God out of schools. We have um, taken, the, you know, that division of church and state, which is not constitutional. Okay. That's not even in the Constitution. And yet people recite that, and it has nothing to do with the Constitution.
Church and
And
state separation, you mean?
correct.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
that's not constitutional. It's nowhere in the Constitution. It's not even the Declaration of Independence. It's nowhere.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I did not know that.
It was in a letter by Benjamin Franklin. I forget who is writing to, but just it had absolutely nothing to do with the Constitution. The separation of church and state, in what he was talking about, was simply that there should not be an established church for the country.
Hmm.
That's it.
Yeah, like an official state religion, like what you have like in the Vatican, or like in Greece at the Orthodox Church.
Well, such as in England, where they came from.
Yeah, the
And
Church
that,
of England, the Church of England.
yes, and that basically the king and queen would not move forward without the blessing of the church.
Hmm.
That was what he was saying, is that you can't make it so that, a president can't make a decision without the blessing of a church. So
Right.
they have taken that and just totally manipulated it and made it as though it's in the Constitution, and it is nowhere in the Constitution. Nowhere.
Okay. Yeah, because I actually have a copy of the Constitution that I got at the Reagan Library here in Simi Valley. And you know what? You brought up a good point. It's like I was trying to look up, where does it say a wall between churches separation, and I can't really find it anywhere.
Mm-mm. No, it's nowhere.
So I've
None of it.
always asked myself, where does that come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a letter by Benjamin Franklin.
Ah, okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts?
You know,
All
I
right.
just hope that people take a real look at critical race theory, and that they start becoming involved, because once you mess with a child's mind, okay, and then Jesus said, what's the, anyone who hurts a child, it would be better for him to be, thrown into a
Into the
lake with
ocean.
yeah. So here's the thing, is what is happening now, okay, is that we now have people that are messing with the minds of children. And if we as a country don't get on our knees and ask for forgiveness and come together and talk to our brother and love our brother and understand and see the divisiveness that this is causing in our country, the manipulation that it is going to have on the minds of the next generation, if we don't take a stand and really take action, because faith without works is dead,
Hmm.
then we are, this country of America, we're, everyone says we're the last beacon of freedom, that really shines, and it's going to go out. I do believe that God has given us grace, but you start messing with the children, he gets pretty angry then.
I agree
So
with you.
just do some great research, find out where this came from, and just search your heart and ask, is guilt of God? No, it's not. Did God make me perfect? He absolutely did. And if critical race theory appeals to you, ask yourself why. Why does someone else have to be guilty to make you feel better?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just, it's all a heart issue, but it's something that I just encourage people to really look into and read. And then if you're a praying person, pray over it.
Oh
So,
yes, I agree. I'm someone that prays all the time. It's really helped me like get through a very difficult time. So yeah, I definitely am someone that prays. That's very important.
mhm, mhm.
All right, then that is it. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. When I'm done, I will send you the link and you could share it to whoever you want to share it with.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on. And sorry it took a little bit of time and scheduling, but I truly appreciate you, the invitation and the conversation.
My pleasure. Have yourself a wonderful evening. Say hi to Trey for me.
Okay. All right. Take
Take
care.
care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.